Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, wherever you may be. Welcome to the Cloud Application Development U.S. Partner Community Call for December. We're really happy to have a lot of our Xamarin partners join us today. We're going to talk a lot about Xamarin and Azure, so that's kind of the meat and the content of what we're going to talk about today. But before we get started, we have a couple of logistics. This call will be recorded on behalf of Microsoft. If you do not wish to be on a call that is recorded, please feel free to drop from the call now. But we will be running this call for, I guess, about an hour, and you can find the slides and the actual recording will be posted on the Yammer group afterwards. You'll be able to get a link to that at the very end of the presentation. So if you want to download the slides or you want to rewatch the video at a later date, you will be able to do that as well. So without further ado, we'll really jump right in. My name is Jonathan Gardner. I'm a TSP for Partner, covering cloud application development. And really what that means is I'm a technical resource that really works with helping partners through scale motions around cloud application development. And so today's call really is we kind of bring the Xamarin community and partner community into the traditional cloud application development partner community. We're really excited to kind of talk about those. Our traditional call structure every month is a very deep technical call. But this month we're kind of really covering both so that we get everybody level set, our Microsoft partners level set on what we traditionally would do or what Xamarin can do for them and how they can integrate Xamarin into their traditional workflow. And our Xamarin partners, we really want to kind of talk about the Azure Backend, what it can do for you guys, and hopefully get you interested in some of the things that it can help offer to your customers, and then ultimately talk about a lot of the programs and funding options that are available to partners to help you guys go to market. So that's kind of the lay of the land for the call today. Without further ado, we're gonna jump in. We're gonna turn it over to Jacqueline to talk about Azure.
Perfect. Thanks, Jonathan. All right, good morning, everyone. My name is Jacqueline Stiles, and I am a Xamarin Partner Manager for the West Coast. So I may know some of you already, or you might work with some of my peers. So this morning, I'm going to be talking about the new Xamarin story in our post-acquisition world. So really digging into the business challenges that we commonly see when talking about enterprise mobility and working with customers to help them build an enterprise mobile strategy. So we'll talk about the challenges and share some statistics, and then talk a little bit about Xamarin as a puzzle piece within the broader Microsoft stack to help your customers solve those problems. So Jonathan, do you want to kick to the first slide?
Yes, sorry, we're on the next slide. So if you just say next, I'll forward it for us.
Okay, perfect. All right, so mobile is transforming how we live and work, and mobile essentially represents the single largest technology innovation of all time. So Jonathan, if you go to the next slide, we can see that mobile has happened 10 times faster than the PC boom of the 80s, 3 times faster.
Hey, Jacqueline, hold on just a second. It looks like the stream is not catching up right now. So let me take a look and see what's going on with that. Just a second. Let's see. All right. All right, let me try and reshare the deck here just a second. Not sure why. We're having some technical difficulties, guys, so just give us a second to present the deck here. And we will see if we can get it presented, because I want to make sure that you guys can all see that. Jacqueline, if you want to just keep having a discussion about it, I'm happy to let you know when it's back on in just a couple of seconds.
I can just wait till it loads.
Okay, yeah, it should just be a second.
Okay.
Apparently, the Skype stream hasn't had its morning cup of coffee yet, so still trying to wake up. Says it's loading on the back end, and loading on the front end. So hopefully we're going to get it here in just a second. Wouldn't be a good presentation without a bunch of technical difficulties, right? the demo gods are apparently angry with us this morning. It must be a big deck because it's still loading.
Well, we've got some fancy graphics in there too.
Oh, that's true. Just a note, as some of you have already found, there is a messaging window. If you have any questions, go ahead and put those in the messaging window. I'll be monitoring that on a regular basis, and we'll stop regularly to try and answer those. If I can't answer them through the messaging application directly, we'll address those on the presentation. So I just want to let everybody know that. And then finally, at the end of the call, we will have a couple of questions. They're not based on the questions are not to drive INSAT, and they're not used to score any of us, but it helps us shape the content for the community calls all around. So if you want to see things that are more technical, or you want to see things that are less technical, let us know that at the end when it comes time to do the polling questions. We'd love to get that feedback from you guys. We want to shape this community to be about your needs and what you're looking for. Also, as we wait for this to continue to load, please note that there is a Yammer group as well. We'd love for you guys to join that and participate. The latest information that we have, we make sure we post there first, so you don't have to wait for a monthly community call to get updates or information on a specific topic. Finally, from a community standpoint, we also have community blog posts that we put out throughout the month. Some of them are based on the topics that we have for the call. In other words, we had an overview of Xamarin for our Microsoft partners in a blog post that came out about a week or so ago that I wrote. But then we also have more in-depth technical content that can range from a variety of things that you may see come out. Maybe it's talking about the new mobile center that's in preview, or it may be talking about specifics of app services, or maybe some new things that are available in media services or mobile development. We'll certainly post those on the enablement blog that we run. So we certainly want to have you guys participate in that. We try and offer a whole variety of different ways for you guys to connect and stay on top of the latest things that are happening through with the release cycle that we've got at Microsoft. We know that it's certainly a challenge for us to keep up with it. So on top of having to keep up with all the things that we're doing, as well as all the things that your other partners and your other vendors are doing, is certainly a challenge. So we want to make sure that we provide that information as best we can. The deck is still loading, so I'm not sure what's going on. All right. See if the content will present. It says it's loaded, but I'm not sure why it's not showing it to present. Okay, let's try something a little bit different here. Let's see if it will let me present my desktop. Okay, looks like that worked.
I do see your desktop, Jonathan.
Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm just going to put the presentation into presenter mode. I'm not sure why the actual function there was not working, but I will go ahead and get that presented, and we will do it that way. So I apologize for the delay here, guys. Wanted to try and do it the right way, but we're gonna just improvise. I won't be able to monitor the messages window, but we will go ahead and try and do that at the end of the call. So if anybody has any questions, go ahead and put those in the window. We'll try and get those at the end. So can you guys see the Xamarin Mobile DevOps?
I do see it, Jonathan.
Okay.
Yes.
So let me get back to the slide here. Let me double check that everybody can see that. Yes, you can. Okay, let's go from here. Jacqueline, you're back up.
Thank you. All right. So as I was saying, mobile has tremendously transformed the way that we live our lives as consumers, and ultimately how we translate those expectations into the workplace. So you can see here, happened 10 times faster than the PC boom of the 80s, 3 times faster than the recent social networking explosion, and 2 times faster than the internet boom of the 90s. So obviously an exponential growth here in the mobile space. If you want to go to the next slide, I know this can be a little bit of a polarizing slide here, but I thought in the context of talking about how much mobile has transformed the way that we live, I thought this photo did a fantastic job demonstrating that. So this was actually taken before the election, and here you can see a U.S. presidential candidate here in the front of a room, and you have the attendees turning around backwards so they could take selfies with this candidate in the background. So this is definitely something that is new to the mobile evolution and mobile revolution, and really speaks to the power that these devices have and the way that they change the way we think. So the next slide here talks about how in 2017, IDC estimates that 100% of line of business apps in customer-facing roles and 75% of line of business apps in internally facing roles will be built for mobile-first consumption. And so what this means is a few years ago, we had people essentially taking their websites, shrinking them down, and optimizing it to be viewed on a mobile device, whereas this statistic talks about how we are going to be thinking about those mobile experiences first and designing that digital experience around that mobile expectation as opposed to the old way of doing things. So the next slide here from Gartner says that through 2017, the market demand for mobile app development services will grow at least 5 times faster than IT's capacity to deliver them. So this is a really great statistic for our partners, because this essentially means that the business demand is going to be 5 times higher than what your customers' central IT will be able to support. And so that's essentially outsourced mobile application development for all of you on the call here. So you can just see how quickly and aggressively the need for mobile strategy has grown within the enterprise. So the next slide here talks about a word that we've sort of informally branded here at Xamarin called appification. And what this means is enterprise organizations going from, hey, let's build a cool marketing app just to show our users that we have digital presence, to actually, I need to scale from that one app to create dozens of apps to support both my employees and my customers. So if you think about the transformation from one marketing app to, okay, I need an app for my HR team and my finance team and my sales team and my distributors and my partners and my customers and their customers, it really becomes a rapid problem for these organizations, and it's a must-have. It's not something that is an option for these organizations. They have to do it, as many of you already know. And the interesting piece to this is that the individual is at the center. So I have a screenshot here on the right. This is just a screenshot from my device when we were building out these slides. And as you know, I'll raise my hand as a self-proclaimed millennial. I live and die by my iPhone, right? I took an Uber to get here this morning. I checked my Starwood points as I have a vacation coming up here in a couple weeks. So I checked some hotel points this morning. I checked some emails on my Outlook app while I was in the Uber. And so my expectation as a consumer is that I'm using really beautiful, high quality apps to run my life. And so what happens is when I step into work, and I walked into the office this morning, I want my enterprise apps that I'm using to manage my partners and help, work with my partners' customers. I want those enterprise apps that I use to have the exact same experience as the ones that I use in my personal life. So Jonathan, if you go to the next slide, we've identified sort of three areas of challenges that organizations face when helping customers or build an enterprise mobility strategy or build their own enterprise mobility strategy. So as we said here, the need to appify and create dozens of high quality apps. The second piece here is this app delivery lifecycle. So again, going back to the sophisticated consumer, we are used to these very experiential apps that are constantly being improved, constantly having updates, constantly seeing new features being added. And so from an enterprise standpoint, you can't just make an app for your sales team and allow it to be stagnant. You have to continually iterate and improve and make it better, because that's the expectation that the users have. And then to further compound that, we also have the challenge of device and operating system fragmentation. So you can see here why a lot of IT leaders are panicking at some of these Gartner statistics that we shared. So the next slide here, and I'll stop for a second. So you'll notice that so far in the presentation, we haven't really talked about Xamarin or Microsoft or product or technology. We've really talked about business challenges, and we've seen a lot of success with having our partners set up the mobile discussion with their customers in this way. So really coming in at a discovery level and helping those organizations think about and get talking about some of the challenges that they're experiencing, and really presenting ourselves as the experts to helping them solve those challenges. So that's where we here on this slide start getting into the Microsoft mobile solution. So we go to the next slide. This is sort of our new technology stack in our post-acquisition world. So starting at the build cycle, we have the Xamarin IDE development platform, which of course is now available through Visual Studio. And then I'm not sure how many of you saw the Connect announcement that we are actually coming out with Visual Studio for Mac. So this is essentially an improved version of Xamarin Studio. So we've got the development platform. We've got integration with Microsoft Azure Cloud on the back end, with which Jonathan will talk about here in a second. We have Xamarin Test Cloud, which is a great technology to help with automated testing, over 2,000 real devices in the cloud that you can run automated test scripts on, to make sure that your continual builds and continual iterations and improvements are delivering that high quality immediate experience for your customers. We've got further integration with Visual Studio Team Services, and then also Hockey App, which was another Microsoft acquisition last year. So a really great beta testing tool. And then of course, acceleration through Xamarin University. So we have this mobile lifecycle solution, we're calling it, which is designed to help your customer, or help your customers with these enterprise mobility challenges. So Jonathan, if you want to skip 2 slides, actually. I know we talked about taking that one out. Okay, so the next thing that we've seen a lot of success in talking with partners to customers about is this thing called the mobile app dilemma. So this is something that customers face when thinking about, okay, I recognize I have these challenges. I have dozens of high quality apps that I have to build, iterate on, and make sure that they run across thousands of devices. How do I do it? What's my strategy? What platform am I going to use to develop those apps? And what are the benefits and challenges that I'll see with each? So the first slide in here talks about platform silos. Jonathan, if you want to go to the next slide here. So this is sort of the first place that many people start when thinking about building an app, right? So they think, okay, let's build this in the native indigenous language to each device type that I want to cover, because obviously the end user experience in the native languages is going to be highest possible. The challenge here is primarily with TCO and productivity. So, if you're building one app, it may not be an issue to have an iOS and an Android and or a Windows team developing separately on those apps. But if you think back to our discussion about this appification challenge, where organizations are building dozens of apps, continually iterating and improving and making sure that it's keeping up with device fragmentation, starting with platform silo teams can be a tremendous hit to productivity, because you're essentially repeating your efforts 2 and/or 3 times. So if you go to the next slide, most people will say, okay, well, I understand the challenges and benefits of native indigenous. What about hybrid? So obviously we have the Microsoft Cordova solution, and web apps are a great solution in a lot of areas, especially, we talked about that slide in the beginning where there's a difference between, hey, let's take my desktop website and optimize it for mobile so people can have at least better views on their phone, versus having the mobile first approach. And so when an organization does have a mobile first approach and they want their consumer and internal line of business apps to be designed from a mobile first perspective, you see sort of the pros and cons here. So hybrid obviously offers much better TCO and productivity. But when you think about a mobile first experience, users can certainly tell when they're using a native indigenous app versus a web app. So the next slide here talks about Xamarin's cross-platform native solution. So we'll get into this here in a second. But essentially we see this as the best of both worlds. So with Xamarin and C#, it is a fully platform native user experience, full performance, full access to the APIs. Anything you can do in native, you can do with Xamarin. So you're still getting that very, 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 very robust end user experience, but also maximizing your TCO. So we have some statistics around here. The original version of this presentation had the code reuse percentages much higher. In talking with our partners, even 30% code reuse of just sort of the core brains and the core data logic of the app. When you think about, again, this appification challenge and organizations building numerous apps internally and externally, even sharing 30% of that code base is a huge benefit to the overall TCO and productivity of that app building process. So if you go to the next slide, Jonathan. This is a really helpful slide that we recommend to our partners to keep on hand, because many of you on the Xamarin side, I'm sure, have already run into this, and on the Microsoft side, if you haven't, you absolutely will. The biggest pushback you will get from customers is, okay, but isn't Xamarin hybrid? Isn't it like some of the other hybrid competitors out there where you have limited functionality? The answer is no. Anything you can do in Objective-C, Swift, or Java, you can do with Xamarin. So if you have more technical questions about this, we can certainly get into a deeper discussion about that at a later point. But essentially the 3 things to remember: fully native user interface, fully native performance, and high fidelity API access. So anything you can do in native, you can do with Xamarin. All right, so moving into the next slide. So when presenting to a customer or thinking about how to present to a customer, we've talked about the business challenges. We've talked about some of the decisions that these consumers and organizations have to make when thinking about their mobile strategy. Now we have to talk about the rest of the mobile lifecycle that we mentioned. So mobile quality is very hard. We already talked about the challenges that are faced: device fragmentation, apps are complex, and ultimately on the testing side, manual testing can be pretty slow, and of course users are going to use apps in unexpected ways. So how do we come up with a quality strategy to make sure that these beautiful, highly performant apps that we are building are providing that same robust experience across all of the users' devices and operating systems that they're using them on? So if you go to the next slide, this is where we believe that Xamarin Test Cloud is the automated testing solution to help you accomplish that. So we're not going to talk about the technology today. Again, we can dig into that a little bit more. I'm certainly happy to have Test Cloud discussions with anyone that is interested. But in keeping with the business value nature of our presentation, I thought this statistic was important to include. So 37% of users will abandon an app if it doesn't load in 3 seconds, and 20% of those users will never return to that app again if it doesn't load within 3 seconds. So again, going back to our original discussion of app users being sophisticated consumers in their daily lives, they expect their apps to work immediately, and if they don't, then 30% of those users have very low persistence and tolerance, and they will move on. So certainly not something we want your customers to experience when using the apps that you've built or helped them build. And so again, we see the automated testing as a way to prevent this hit to ROI happening to your customers. Okay, so switching gears a little bit, Jonathan, if you want to just skip to the next slide here. So we've talked about development, we've talked about testing. We're going to get into backend here in a second. I wanted to include a case study. So we have this on our website, but Alaska Airlines is one of our really big customer stories at the moment. So they are fully bought into the Xamarin Microsoft stack. And so they're using Xamarin for numerous internal enterprise apps for their organization. They're building in Xamarin, they're using Test Cloud, they're hosting on Azure. I wanted to show a video, but just in the nature of webinars and obviously the technology issues this morning, that felt risky, so I thought we would just keep a static slide in here, but we newly renovated our Xamarin customer page where you can see examples of customers using this full mobile lifecycle DevOps stack that we're talking about here today. So the next slide, Jonathan, do you want to take over here? Or do you want me to talk about these next 4?
No, I'm happy to start the kind of discussion and transition over to the backend.
Perfect.
So when we talk about applications, certainly we're talking about front end and the development of those pieces. But as we start looking at what supports those and the data that they surface to make intelligent decisions, especially when we look at businesses, one of the things that we're seeing in our journey to the cloud as we develop this platform on the Azure Backend is that there's a significant need to access data that's on-prem. And Microsoft's been at the forefront of that kind of hybrid scenario when we look at mobile. And so one of the things that Azure allows in combination with Xamarin for developers to do is to create applications on those native platforms, connect those through cloud services to support them, and then be able to also connect into enterprise data that's on-prem. Certainly there's a lot of built in the cloud applications that we would support through Azure, but we have a unique experience with the connection to the back end, and so hybrid is very, very important to us and will continue to be for some period of time. So when we look at those back-end services, really it kind of echoes what Jacqueline was talking about in that need to be able to be reactive, to be able to load quickly, and to be able to provide that information. So when you look at Azure being able to provide things like offline data sync, corporate authentication, and that hybrid connectivity, it really puts us in a unique scenario to have a very strong platform that we hope you guys will choose. So I think it would be naive for us to think that you're not already looking at other services. You may be using things like Parse and Firebase, and you're using AWS when it comes to the backend. But we want to make sure that you understand what we have to offer on the Azure backend. And now that Xamarin is part of Microsoft, we also want to kind of tell the story of things being better together, because you are going to see some unique integrations into that are going to make those two work even more seamlessly together, and we'll kind of talk about those things. One of those may be things like cognitive services to help you create intelligent applications. So the important thing, and the thing that we kind of talk about on this slide is a reservation system that uses intelligent information to predict what the end user actually may experience as they start looking at things. In this case, it may be rental reservations for for skis, they may want to understand based on the dates that they select that there's high demand there. You can see lift status information, and you can find dining information and recommendations based on the history of somebody who may be using the application. So all of those are provided by the tools on the Azure Backend. And as we look at that and the challenges that developers face trying to create those applications, where you may have a business who actually has multiple applications that they need to support, they need to develop those in a life cycle that provides value back to the business, and the complexity of reaching out to many of those devices. We want to make sure that the Azure platform really can provide that seamless user experience. So when we look at this, one of the things that we did also release at Connect, we built out this slide for us, and one of the things we talked about at Connect is the capability to do that. We've had people ask us multiple times, they're using tools like Parse and Firebase, and how do we connect that with the Azure Backend? And at Connect a couple weeks ago, we certainly started announcing that our kind of intent to that. How do we deal with storage, push notifications? How do we deal with distribution of that? How do we do live updates and A/B testing? And all of that kind of stuff has been put together in the preview that you'll see in the Visual Studio Mobile Center. So the idea is that there's a central place for you guys to go and manage your applications, whether you're dealing with one application or you're dealing with multiple applications across a large enterprise environment. So we want to be able to support that, and we want to be able to connect in that, so it streamlines the workflow that you guys are already leveraging with the Xamarin tools. And ultimately, the discussion is really about the flexibility in being able to continue to use the tools that you guys want to use. One of the slides that I kind of wish I would have put in here now is kind of our discussion about our change in our approach to open source here at Microsoft. There's been a significant shift in that over the last couple of years. At any point in time, any kind of day by noon at Microsoft, we've probably committed about 500,000 lines of code to open source projects at any given day by noon Pacific time. And at this point, we've contributed over 50 million lines of code to open source projects on a regular basis. So you're seeing a significant shift in the way that we approach the market. So we want to come to you and let you use the tools that you want, and we want to be able to support those on the Azure Backend. So that's kind of our approach as we do that. And not only is it just through mobile services that you saw in the Mobile Center, but the Azure platform as a whole can even extend out when your application is ready to do even more complex things, whether it's using stateful microservices in something like Service Fabric, or using that hybrid connection and needing to do complex business logic through BizTalk services, or even connecting out and displaying media through media services. So we've got a platform that really provides that support as you develop your applications and need it. So all of these things we certainly want to talk about in detail, and I'm happy to dive in the weeds on any given of these services. But we wanted to make sure that you guys had a clear picture of what the technical backend looks like that supports it. And again, tell you can bring whatever it is you're working on today. We want to support that on the Azure platform. We want you to use Xamarin to develop your applications, and really it's a story about better together. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Eric. Eric, if you just want to let me know, and I'll advance the slides for you or build them out for you. We'll continue that kind of trend since we've had some Skype difficulties this morning.
Great. Thanks, Jonathan. So now that we've heard a little bit more about the backend and the Xamarin capabilities, I wanted to talk and shift this a little bit to discussing the value of partnering with Microsoft and what you guys can expect from a partnership with Microsoft. So you can go to the next slide. We know one of the most important items when you guys are really looking at and assessing partnerships with vendors like Microsoft or others, it's all about how can I be profitable? So we have 4 different ways that you guys can actually boost your margins and be profitable when you're a partner of Microsoft. The first path in our business model is resell, and that provides up to 23% resell margin on utilizing Azure for your development efforts. The second path in our business model is probably more familiar to some of you, and That's project-based services. And in this type of a business model, you can expect somewhere between 25 to 35%. This ebbs and flows a little bit and is not as predictable as the third part, which is managed services. And this has been a hot button for a lot of our partners lately as they shift from a project-based business model to a managed services-based business model with predictable revenue streams coming in around 40 to 45%. And the most profitable model with Microsoft has been IP-based services. This can be development of product, which a lot of you are probably already doing when you're writing these apps for your customers, as well as development of best practices, methodologies, things that can be reusable at your customer base. And we're seeing upwards of 60% in our partner community as far as profit margin in that type of business model. So that's just a brief picture of what you can expect as you wrap your mind around doing some of this work on Azure with Microsoft. Next slide. So there are really 5 key value principles when you're developing a partnership with Microsoft that I want to touch on here. And Jonathan, you can go ahead and build that. But before I dive into those, I just want to give you a little bit of a context around the size of investment that Microsoft makes in its channel. And according to IDC, Microsoft is a leader in investment with $5.8 billion invested into its partner network. And if you spread that across all of our partners in our program today, that comes out to about $320,000 in value annually attributable to partners' utilization of the benefits that come through the partner program network with Microsoft. So that first one there at the top, what type of value will you get for this in your business? That's really about leveraging the internal use rights you get. And that's up to $12,000 annually in Azure credits, as well as 25 to 100 licenses of our other products that you guys can actually run your business on or use to subsidize running your business on. When you think about profitability and how you can increase that through the benefits that come with the partner network, that's looking at our resale margins of up to 23%, which are at the very top of cloud platform providers right now in the market. And then we also have an influence program, which allows you to capture 15% of the consumption that your work is driving with your customers. So 2 different business models and ways to monetize that there. From an ideas perspective, that's really all about our enablement of partner communities. This call is a great example of that. There's many other social networks and other ways that you can connect with other partners to share ideas, generate new ideas, and get to market. So talking about going to market and how we can help you guys do that, we have quite a few resources, but 3 that I'll just talk about here are the Smart Partner Marketing resources, which is based on what we've seen successful amongst our partners and then packaging that up and sharing it with you. Marketing Sure Step programs, which are collateral-based things that really help you guys cut costs from developing marketing programs and getting it out to your customers quicker. And then things like Fast Track, which are about helping you deploy our solutions a little bit quicker. And finally, wrapping up with support, right? You guys are out there, you're talking with the customers, you want to feel supported by the vendor and the technology that you've selected to use. So as a Microsoft partner, we will give you free cloud signature support, which is all about supporting any type of work you're doing with Microsoft technologies that are based in the cloud for your customers. There's pre-sales technical support, there's advisory hours, and everything that we do in the partner program is really geared at lowering your guys' operation costs of running your business and getting to market so that your profitability can increase, your valuations can increase, and you guys can have a good profitable business with us. Next slide, Jonathan. So just to ground everybody a little bit in the way our partner program works, we have 3 membership options, and the benefits in these programs are incremental as you move up the ladder. The first is called our network membership, and that's the entry level. There's no cost associated with it. You do get some training benefits and assistance. The next is called Action Pack, and in addition to what you get from a training perspective with the network member, you also get access to internal use rights of our software, community-based support, and other resource centers that you can leverage. And this is approximately $500. And then you move into our silver and gold competency levels. This is where the highest level of benefit and the majority of that $5.8 billion is invested. But this is everything from 25 to 100 licenses of our products to use for your business. It's support, it's training, it's community, it's market recognition. And the key requirements here are based in technical and engineering certification, customer reference, and then demonstrating revenue or consumption of the Azure product line. And the costs here are $1,500 for silver and approximately $4,000 for gold competency. Next slide, Jonathan. And as we wrap up here, I just did want to cover a few more things, and the Cloud Solution Provider program is one of them. You may or may not heard of this program. It's relatively new to Microsoft. We launched it about a year ago for Azure, and this is all about putting the control of the customer in the hands of the partner, you guys, where you manage the monthly billing option with your customer, and Microsoft bills you. You directly provision and manage any of the Azure instances and environments you're using as a back end for your app dev projects. And then you own the technical support as well. And Microsoft can help, on the back end, supporting you with cloud signature support and other programs. But as far as the customer is concerned, you guys are the face that handles all of this with them. So you can create new revenue streams around services for billing, services for provisioning and managing the Azure instances of these customers, and then the technical support. And from conversations I've had in the past, quite a few of the Xamarin partners are doing the dev work and then handing the keys back to the cloud environment to the customer. But if you thought about retaining that and setting it up in the Cloud Solution Provider program, it's just a net new revenue stream for you, and it creates a little bit more customer control for you. And we're seeing great success with this and partners that are starting to do it now. But it is the beginning. There's a lot of headroom for growth. And if you have any other questions about this, I'll show you how you can get some answers towards the end. Next slide, Jonathan. You will have access to this deck, and this is just some additional resources that you can leverage around the partner program and get more information. So feel free to tap into any of these as you see fit. But if you wanted to actually talk with somebody and go a little bit deeper about this, and you have questions specifically about how do I get started with Azure as a back-end technology, for my app dev work, Jonathan, you can go to the next slide. You can contact myself. I cover the West region. My peer Tanya Butler covers Central, and my peer Bill Sherry covers East. And we are partner practice recruiters. Our whole goal is to help new partners into our ecosystem and help them get skilled up and enabled from a technical sales perspective, and then get to market as fast as possible. So if you have any questions, please feel free to just shoot us an email, and we'll get you headed in the right direction. Jonathan, that concludes my portion, so I will hand it back to you to close up.
Awesome. Well, thank you guys so much for joining us on the call today. As part of that discussion, again, we will be providing the deck, but we talked about some of the resources where you may get involved. So whether it's the Yammer community, whether it is the application development call that we have monthly, where we'll be kind of diving into a lot of these topics from a technical standpoint going forward, or whether you follow us on the blog, we certainly want you to do that. What I am going to do right now, though, is I'm going to freeze the screen. I'm going to stop sharing my presentation just so we can go to the Q&A panel to make sure that we got everything that we wanted to kind of cover today. So let me pull that up to see if we had any questions that we needed to cover today. So let me pull that up and see. So Eric, they asked, can you please detail the 23% margin on resale? From our understanding, the margin on CSP on Azure is only 12%.
Yep. Okay. So there are two different ways to market with the CSP program. One is a direct CSP partner, and the second is an indirect CSP partner. A direct CSP partner qualifies for a 15% margin with an 8% incentive. That's your 23%. And as a direct CSP, you are responsible for the provisioning, the billing, and the first line of support. Some partners feel that that is not in line with their current business model. They can't provide support around the clock, 7 days a week, all year long. So they opt for the indirect model, and that can be up to you and your distributor. So essentially, you set that up through your distributor, and they set the margin for you, and that may be very well be why you're at 12%. So hopefully that answers your question. If you have more questions, eadams@microsoft.com. Feel free to shoot me a mail.
Awesome. So with that, we're going to go ahead and conclude today's call. We have a couple of other questions we're going to answer offline. If you want to continue the discussion, again, we will. Let me go ahead and put my screen back up here so you guys can see that. But we'll finish off on the community slide. Thank you guys for joining us today. At the conclusion of the call, there will be some questions. We really do hope that you will answer those for us. Take time to help us shape calls going forward in the future. Join us in the Yammer group. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us there. That is also where we're going to post the slides and the recording for today's call. Thanks for sticking with us through some of the technical difficulties. And with that, we'll go ahead and conclude today's call. Thank you guys for joining us again on the Cloud Application Development Partner Community Call.